by Robert Fulghum titled Autumn Hare. Out walking in the windy rain twilight before supper this evening, I collected a bouquet of fresh fallen leaves. I like autumn leaves and the way deciduous trees go about their business.
Suppose people could do the same thing every fall. Hair would slowly turn shades of yellow and orange and red. We would let our hair grow long at this season to show as much color as possible.
Imagine the conversations. Your oranges are very deep this year, sharp this year. That's a nice shade of yellow you're growing.
Then, little by little, like the leaves, the hair would fall out. Not to worry, it would quickly begin to grow in again, just as the buds of new leaves already there on the trees behind the loss of leaves.
But we'd be bold, you protest.
Not for long, and bald is beautiful
Ah,
sometimes.
oh, I'm looking around.
It is the absence of something that makes the presence of something a matter of delight.
For one thing, we would have an annual hat season. Caps and scarves and hats of all kinds for indoors and out. And after that, surprise season, as your hair grew back, always in some strange new shade of natural.
Or through vitamins as fertilizer, we might be able to opt for some color for spring. I would try green one year just to make it clear I am still alive and still growing.
In the trees, now clean of leaves, the empty nests of birds are visible. One nest had been blown down by the wind. On examination, I was surprised to find quite a few long strands of human hair woven into it. Green, the tensile strengths of human hair. Given the tensile strengths of human hair, I would say the bird had a good idea for nest construction.
Perhaps when I clean out the hair from my brush, gotta get my line, I should put the hair out near a bird feeder or bird bath come spring for the birds to use. I like the thought of my hair being woven into a nest way up in a tree.
Imagine then, if our hair turned yellow and orange and red in the fall, and we put some out for the birds in the spring, there would be these beautiful nests made, which we could then harvest in the fall and wear as hats while our hair grew back. After this, Dennis, I leave this up to you. This is Reverend Dennis Reynolds from Eugene, and his talk today is Harvest the Power.
I think you can see why from that reading that I'm a big fan of Robert Fulghum, who for many years served as a Unitarian Universalist minister, and I'll talk a little bit about this setting. And he's best known to many Americans as the author of the essay and then the book by the same title, Everything I Needed to Know I Learned in Kindergarten. You may remember its life advice and about continuing to be amazed at the wonder of life and the importance of holding hands when we cross the street and taking care of one another. I was in early childhood education when the book was first published, and I think it's probably the best lifting up of that field we ever had. It talked about the life lessons that those of us in that field had been trying to impart for a long, long time. The essay was originally written as a newsletter entry in the weekly newsletter of the Edmonds Unitarian Universalist Church. And reportedly, one of the congregants had cut it out and taped it on their refrigerator when they were visited by a friend who was in publishing, who asked, has this person written any more of those? And Fulghum had. Fulghum also served for a time as the district executive back when we had districts of the Pacific Northwest region of the Unitarian Universalist Association. He lived in Seattle for many years. And when he left active ministry to focus on writing and painting. He offered a wit and wisdom that speaks to many, and he has a style many of his peer preaching colleagues look to with admiration. I know I certainly do. I love his rambling thoughts, and that was such as we shared as today's readings. I find that notion of shedding hairs that might be woven into birds' nests that whimsically might magically become hats that we could harvest and wear. Just a wondrous image. Such hats could be woven in part from threads left behind by those who had gone before. I find it an apt metaphor for how we might weave into our own lives and our worldview wisdom from those who have gone before. When we harvest them, such hats would have us wearing threads from our mentors and our teachers. As our chalice reading reminds us, we can pause to offer thanks to those who have rekindled our flame, or perhaps offered threads that have become part of who we are. Threads perhaps from those who had advised patience in offering in our ongoing process of growth and change. Such threads can come from many sources, both nearby and from those exemplary individuals we sometimes see in public life. In another essay from his later book, Fulghum offered this account. He wrote, just above the light switch by the door to the studio where I work, I often place a photograph, pinning it to the wall with a red push pin. When in a magazine or newspaper I find a particularly arresting picture, a visual image that provokes my mind, I tear it out and put it by the light switch so I can see it and consider it as I come and go. Sometimes to inspire me or to confront me. For most of the month of March a few years back, 3 photographs were pinned to the light switch together. A small one in color showed a man doing some carpentry wearing an aged leather high-top work shoes, blue jeans, a flannel shirt, and a sweat-stained red baseball cap, and as round his waist a well-used nail apron. He's working about 8 feet off the ground, straddling a wall header. This man was framing a house. By the look on his face and the way he holds the hammer, it's clear that he not only knows exactly what he is doing, but also he is intent on doing it right and doing it well. I see carpenters every day doing this common task, nailing wood to wood with a hammer and nail and muscle and blood and sinew and brain. Men who say when I ask what they are doing will reply, I'm in construction. I like looking at this picture. Bright sky, new wood, and ancient trade. Something very honest and positive and fundamental going on. In the second picture by the light switch is a grainy black and white news photo from the morning paper earlier in the month, showing a middle-aged man in short-sleeved, sweat-stained khaki shirt. The man is smiling the greatest of smiles, and the other people in the picture are also smiling. It's the conclusion of an election. On this occasion, we see the smiles of an honest election that had been held in a powder keg conditions in a Central American country. Nobody was killed during these elections, and the losers, for the first time, accepted the results, leading to a major change in government and hope for the people. The man in the short sleeves was there assisting, offering his credibility and his brain and his skills and even his life to help bring about the impossible. He was there on his own, representing only himself, and the concerns of people like him from all over the world without any compensation other than the wages paid by conscience. The third picture by the light switch shows a man in a white shirt and tie. He's not smiling. The look on his face is a combination of vexation and determination. He has come once again, as he has come again and again and again, to meetings in the Middle East to get enemies to talk to each other face to face. Not on behalf of the government of any government, not on behalf of any organization, but on behalf of peace and justice. It's the same man in each of these pictures. By the light switch by my door, he is truly in the construction business, giving up his time and his life to build houses for poor people, to build structures and peace in one of the hardest, meanest arenas of conflict in human history. The man's name, you may know it by now. His name is Carter. Yeah, Jimmy Carter. He used to raise peanuts in Georgia. Had a government job once, but he's gone back to being in the construction business again and teaching. When the story ends and we settle up accounts in the 20th century, someday his name will shine. He may not be on the list of great presidents. It's too soon to say, and history readjusts that all the time. But it's not too soon to say that he is the finest ex-president the country ever had. Fulgham continued, each night I finish my work and pause at the light switch and I look at the three pictures. The word that comes to mind is gallant, a high-spirited, courageous notion. This man knows how to lose, and he has lost big. Forces beyond his control may have made him the wrong man for the wrong job at the wrong time. Still, he has lost like few have in public. He might have tucked his tail between his legs and spent the rest of his life sorting papers, stacking books, fishing, playing golf as others who held his government job have done. But to lose and to be a loser are not the same thing. And he knows that, and we know that. And besides, he still had work to do, tasks to complete, because he is who he is, and not because of any office he may or may not hold. He is proof that there is no limit to the amount of good a man may do if he doesn't worry about who gets credit. He's not one of those the Bible talks about who gained the whole world and lost his soul. As I flick out the light switch, his example is not lost upon me. He has not yet won the Nobel Prize, yet when the Prize of Nobility is awarded, he will be a worthy recipient. The Prize of Nobility. By the way, after Fulgham's essay was published, Carter did win a Nobel Prize. I consider Jimmy Carter, who today, October 1st, celebrates his 99th birthday, as one of those figures who offers a colorful, shining example of how we might live our lives. By the way, they had to hold the party at the Carter Library yesterday instead of today because they weren't sure that they would be able to open the doors, because as a government entity, they would have been closed if a shutdown had not been averted last minute. I certainly would weave threads that Jimmy Carter left behind into my life. Even now, at age 99, he reportedly is very interested in the work of the Carter Center. It seeks, amongst other projects, to eradicate guinea worms that cause a terrible health toll in East Africa. Paige Alexander, the chief executive of the Carter Center, the nonprofit institution that served as the base for his philanthropic work over the past 40 years, said, "He's got so much joy in seeing his presidency and post presidency revisited. In many ways, that keeps him going, along with peanut butter ice cream." Alexander reports on increasingly less frequent communications with President Carter. He wasn't asking about politics or the economy, Alexander recalled. He just wanted to know what the guinea worm count was. Wow, such an exemplary person, 99 years old, and his concerns are about how to help others. Jimmy Carter is not alone in such global efforts. For a time, he was a part of a group of global leaders called the Elders. It was initiated by Nelson Mandela and included him and Jimmy Carter. Former Irish President Mary Robinson, B.K. Moon, and Kofi Annan, both former UN Secretary Generals. Gero Harlem Brundtland, former Prime Minister of Norway. Ernesto Dazio, former President of Mexico. Archbishop Desmond Tutu, and the former Prime Ministers or Presidents of Chile, Colombia, Liberia, Mongolia, Finland, Poland, and New Zealand, the Elders. They proclaimed that our vision is a world where people live in peace, conscious of their common humanity and their shared responsibility for each other, the planet, and future generations, whereas there is universal respect for human rights, where poverty has been eliminated and people are free from fear and oppression and able to fulfill their true potential. These dedicated people have continued beyond their official leadership careers to advocate for a better world, to continue to leave threads for the future. Now, many of us have experienced elders and mentors up close and personal. For some of my most important members have been ministers for me. The Reverend Cullen Colbert, who I quoted, is one. Also, the Reverend Petty Pingle, who died just this past month, was another. She was the first one who suggested, back when I was in my 40s, that I might consider becoming a Unitarian Universalist minister someday. Reverend Betty also turned 70 while serving in Eugene as an interim minister. She reported on the event of her birthday that she had reached the point in her life where she was not afraid to step out into the darkness because she was confident she would either find solid ground or she would learn to fly. I invite each of you to dip into your recollections and give silent thanks to those who helped you find solid ground or perhaps sprout wings and fly. I think of others in my life, like Peter or Neil, two men's group friends, who each in their turn held what they called the old white guy slot on the Eugene Human Rights Commission. It's because of those two's mentorship and example I now serve on the City of Eugene Sustainability Commission. In that work, I am also mentored by younger climate activists whose diligence and dedication inspires me to keep up my work alongside and in support of them. When I think about the threads that any of us might leave behind, I find myself exploring the notion of ancestry and being an ancestor, and I question what kind of ancestor I might be. Becoming an ancestor is not something that happens only after we have died. The growing of colorful threads that we leave behind happens throughout our lives. Those of us who have been blessed with children do that in parenting. Teachers get many such opportunities, and each of us who live our lives out loud offer teaching threads that can be harvested by the generations that follow, and that they may select to weave into their own lives. Living our lives with honesty and with a commitment to having an impact is an act of faith. Faith in the future and a faithful knowing that what we do matters. Not merely for those we see and touch, but also for those far from us by geographic distance or even across the passages of time. May each of us keep believing and keep doing and keep leaving threads to be harvested in the future. May it be so. I invite you now to join me in a time of quiet contemplation and meditation. It may be a time of recollection for you. Just simply open your hands before you, open to whatever may come. And then breathing in deeply, take it to your heart and hold it there as though your life depends upon it. Pause for a moment, and when the time comes, exhale and let it go. Let it go so that our hands may be open and empty to receive what comes to us. So again, breathing in, hold, exhale and let go. Open, in, hold, let go. In, let go. In again, let go. And then just sitting in silence, hands open to receive. And now just one deep breath in and out to cleanse us as we return to our time of here and now and the collection of the offering that is the tradition of this congregation.